Okay, awesome. So first opening question, just think about this for a few seconds, a minute, whatever. And in your words, it should give you a prompt. This question should come up on your screens. What makes a high performing team? So type that in either your browser or your phone, and we'll have a quick discussion on that. Awesome. Communication, alignment, and vision. So yeah, absolutely. A team that is communicating with each other. They understand the vision, where they're going, and they're aligned. They're aligned towards that. That's great. Looks like vision is growing in size. You're all agreeing on that. Communication, being proactive, self-organizing. Yeah, absolutely. Self-organizing teams are certainly more aligned, right? Because they're able to align on what's most important, and then go get that, go do whatever they need to do. Just a follow-up question. What in your mind, this is going to come up later in the session, what in your mind does it take to create or support a self-organizing team? And there's no question on there that you'll have to speak up for this one.
Yeah, I put this one down, Kumar. I mean, I think there's a level of maybe many things contribute to this. Some trust, maybe having some clear direction in terms of what your like an individual's role is in the team.
Hmm.
Feeling empowered, I think, to you know propose solutions, seek answers,
Hmm.
set up a meeting to have a discussion. I mean, these teams can, if someone is out, for example, if the product owner is out or the scrum master is out, whatever, the team can function, right? And then
Yeah.
you can kind of pick up for that person who's away and continue driving forward, and they feel comfortable making decisions or proposing decisions, solutions. So they can just kind of, I don't know, self-heal, if you will, and just
Yeah.
keep moving forward. So um, I guess a lot of things could go into that potentially. From at least that's what I think about.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely, Tana. Let's see. The Menti code is uh, actually, if you just click that link in the chat, Tana, from your browser.
It worked.
I'll pay up. It worked? Okay,
Perfect. Thank you so much.
awesome. You're welcome. Yeah, and everything you mentioned there, Scott, absolutely. It's being able to, I love the way you put it, self-heal, right? So it doesn't take some outside intervention, some manager to come in and tell the team, go try this or do that. You know, the team figures it out. They have each other's back, so to speak, and they understand how to organize around the problem to fix the problem to move forward, right? So I think that's a great description. Anything else that resonates from this list that you see here that you'd want to talk about? Any of you?
I put alignment and vision on there because, that's really kind of a foundation, right, of a high performing team to make sure we're all working towards the same vision. We're seeing the same vision in our minds and are aligned in our work towards that.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. Alignment and vision are critical. Well, vision first, right? So it's like if the group of individuals don't know where they're going, then they're not going to be aligned. And so vision is really critical to why are we together? Why are we working together? What are we working on? So the answering the why and the what is super critical from a vision standpoint, so that the team, the group of individuals that make up the team, can align on, okay, I'm going to do this part, you do that part, you do that part, and we're going to all sort of figure out how we can achieve that vision. So yeah, it's super important. And that leads, of course, to being more collaborative and communicating and things like that. I'm going to move on to the next set of slides here. So in terms of, actually, before I do, I think some other word came in. Let me just see what came in. Oh, I think it just someone reiterated vision. All right. So in terms of team evolution, this is a typical path, right? That people, individuals, and organizations go through. From, you have organizations where everyone's sort of an individual contributor. Perhaps in smaller companies, you have a bunch of individuals working in their own capacity to deliver something of value, right? And in cases, those individuals, they form into groups, either organically or purposely, intentionally. People say, okay, hey, you people need to come together and work as a quote unquote team and work towards this goal. And at some point, that group of individuals becomes a team, right? They share the vision. They figure out how to work better together. They're working more cohesively, and in time they become self-organizing. To Scott, to your point, right? So they have each other's backs, and they're able to self-heal and things like that. And eventually, they may, if the environment, the organizational supports that, they may even become self-managing. And we're going to get into what all these things mean. And finally, the sort of the pinnacle of teaminess is what I think of as these self-directed teams. They not only manage themselves, but they also choose what they're going to work on next. They sort of create their own vision based on the goals of the organization that they're in, right? So they figure out, okay, what's the next thing most important thing that we should be focused on and we should be working on. And so this is typically an evolutionary path from individual contributors to teams. And what's important is for you guys, whether you're part of a team or a group, or you're an individual contributor, or you lead a team, is how you sort of create the conditions by which your team can evolve to the right. Not every team is going to be self-directed. In fact, in many organizations that wouldn't work, because you need a certain type of team culture to be able to make that happen. But at what point is it most beneficial for the organization to be? Where on this spectrum? And so let's look at each of these things. So individuals, very simply, is a person acting alone, right? And characteristics of individuals is there's very little or no interaction, very little cooperation and collaboration. It's mostly based on the individual efforts, and so there may be also competition, right, between individuals. Like my bonus, my salary, my promotion is then based on how I do, and so I'm going to compete as much as I can with my fellow employee, and that of course leads to a lack of trust and certainly unhealthy levels of conflict. From a management standpoint, if I'm working in an environment like this, I might, as a manager, I'm going to have to be directive, much more directive. I might have to assign work and manage the work. And so the behaviors that you see typically is, as an individual, is like, hey, it's all me. It's a me first attitude, and I will tend not to help others, because if I do, it's going to take me away from my tasks. And if it takes me away from my tasks, then I'm going to get dinged for that. I'm going to get reprimanded. Have you? I mean, I know that because I've worked with you, Scott and Catherine, at clinical trials. I don't see this a lot, or maybe even at all. Any thoughts on your experiences in organizations where you've seen these types of behaviors?
Yeah, I've certainly come across it in the past. I mean, the way things are set up right now, it is very much a team. I think, as I said at the outset, we're continually evolving and trying to figure out how that team can work better together and function more cohesively, and et cetera. And we're kind of having those conversations now, which is probably good for every team to do on a regular basis, I think.
Yeah.
But I've certainly seen cases where there's been, one person who has been with a company for a long time and just has all the information and almost can kind of hold a group or maybe
Yeah.
even the corporation, the company in as a hostage, right? If I go,
Yeah.
all these things are going to break. So I've absolutely seen that behavior in the past, and and at least in that case, it took a lot of eventually, it took a lot of awareness and acknowledgement from the team at that level and management to say this is not the way we need to be functioning.
Right.
Someone like this
Exactly.
around. Yep.
Yeah, definitely a dysfunctional work environment is what's and it's hard to it's hard to stay engaged and keep your morale up in an environment like that.
Yeah, and this actually brings up a good point, because I've been, just as Scott said, I've also seen this in teams in my past life. Introduction of like resolution frameworks by the PM, where it encouraged people to speak up if they're uncomfortable when one person tries to, go ahead of the team. So that's something else that, probably every team should have, like a conflict resolution mechanism or framework to get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I think that if you are a group of individuals, if you're a group, not quite a team yet, then you see behaviors that you're describing where, there's either a total lack of conflict, no one speaks up, no one discusses, no one debates, or conflict that goes the other end of the spectrum where there's a lot of conflict, there's lots of arguments, there's a lot of competition, and not a whole lot of co-opetition, right? Where people are discussing things with the intent to come up with solutions. And so I think what you bring up is a sort of a lack of psychological safety. And so to combat that as leaders, it's thinking about, well, how do I create an environment with more safety so people can speak freely, have constructive debate, and come up with solutions and decisions.
I was also going to note, kind of jumping off for continuing what you were saying, Kumar, with the two extremes where the team is maybe hostile and aggressive to each other in communication, or on the other end of the spectrum where they're not talking at all. We can't, even with a good facilitator, we can't get anyone to really share anything. I've seen, I'm not sure about you guys, but I've seen teams, like the same team, swing from one end to the other end real quick, actually.
Yeah.
Kind of like a coping mechanism, maybe, right? Or yeah.
Yeah, they almost get to a point where they're like blow up, right? The stress is so high that they just kind of blow up and it comes out, right? And then as a facilitator, like, oh my God, what do I do? Right? Or as a manager of the team, it's like, oh my God, what's going on here? People, you were so quiet before, they were just waiting for instruction, and all of a sudden they are at each other's throats.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, so it's a tough, it can be a tough place to work, right? When you have sort of this individualistic, and it's hard because most organizations, you're rewarded based on your individual contributions. So even though you may be part of a team, you're still being rewarded based on your contributions individually. So it's a tough for the individual who's part of a group or a team. It's a tough a transition to sort of separate. Hey, my individual contributions are what I'm being evaluated on, but I'm also expected to function with the team and help the team be successful. So what does that mean for me? How can I achieve my goals and yet help the team achieve our goals. So that's a tough thing to navigate for an individual, and it requires really strong leadership. And I don't mean like directive leadership, but I mean strong leadership in terms of clarifying what individuals' goals are and what team goals are, and even maybe altering the rewards models and reward systems to reward team performance over individual performance. Hi, Beth. Welcome. We just got started. I guess we got started a little bit ago. So this is being recorded, so I now will post a recording to the community. So
fantastic. Then I can catch the beginning.
You can catch the beginning, right? But we're just talking about individuals and evolution from to teams, right? So we talked about individual contributors, and now we've got groups, right? A number of people with some relation to each other, and the characteristics of that. And we're gonna, I think, ask a question here. What's going on? It's not coming up. Okay, well, there was a question, but it didn't come up. Let me see if I can maybe I have it messed up. So there was a question about what's the characteristics of groups, but it didn't pop up. So we're just going to talk about it. So some characteristics in groups is that they may have unhealthy conflict. We were just talking about this. When you have an individual mindset, then the conflict may be unhealthy, even though they may be part of a group. From a management standpoint, it still requires direction, assignment, management of groups, and I see this a lot in the clients that I help as a coach, is where they're called teams, quote unquote teams, but they're really not teams because the level of management is pretty high. There's a lot of task assignment and low levels of psychological safety, and so even though they may be called a team, they really function more as a group. And the characteristic, the nature of groups is, hey, if you ask for help, sure, I'll help you as long as it doesn't impact me and my commitment, the commitments that have been made for me, right? So any thoughts on this? Moving from individuals to groups? And really the definition, people working towards a goal. It's a goal, at least it's goal oriented. The work is coordinated by someone, a manager, a team lead, a tech lead, someone.
Just one quick comment on that. Have you guys ever done the activity? You can do it maybe in school or facilitating training where you have like the human knot, and it's everybody takes a piece of one end of rope and then they get twisted, right?
Yep.
Love using this group versus team example when they're starting to get, they're trying to get untangled, right? And with the group,
yep.
I like the definition here, people working towards a goal whose work is coordinated by someone else for them. So I like to start it out with one person's in charge of untangling the whole group, nobody else holding the strings can say anything. It always kind of hits that home, right?
Absolutely, yeah, that's a great technique, and I thank you for reminding me about that. I haven't run in-person facilitated events for a couple of years. One that was just I miss it. I really do. I had one last I think it was November. I went out to Colorado and did a live facilitated workshop, and I just loved it. I mean, it's just you forget how much more preparation there is to do those types of things because I've gotten so used to Zoom and Miro and stuff like that. But I love those events because you can demonstrate group dynamics in such a quick and efficient manner. All right, let's move on. So now we're at the team, right? So a group of people linked by a common purpose. And I skipped the question here too. So what are the characteristics here? Interaction, cooperation, collaboration, a lot of the words you came up with at the beginning at the top of this session where I asked you to describe what does it mean to be part of a team. Trust, individuals trust one another. I don't know if you've read the book or heard of the book by Patrick Lencioni, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And one of the dysfunctions is a lack of trust. That's a foundation of what makes a team is trust. And so having trust leads to commitments and conflict, healthy conflict, and accountability, and of course results. And those are the 5 dysfunctions, if you will. If you don't have trust, you don't have any of those things. And from a management standpoint, you know, it might require some assignment when teams are starting out, like when teams are forming, right? It might require some assignment and management, but it's really more relying on the team to maximize their strengths. And this picture, you can kind of see a visual of what Tana was describing, you know, with the string, right? People working towards a common goal who coordinate the work amongst themselves. So this is so teams are starting to form here. They're coordinating, they're aligning themselves. And the nature of a team is, I will help before you have to ask. You know, it's about, hey, what do you need? This is kind of the root thing in a stand-up. The stand-up isn't for status. It's to figure out where the team is in terms of their commitment, and how team members may ask these questions. If someone is stuck, you know, it's like, well, Scott, maybe you're stuck with something, and maybe Tana speaks up and says, hey, Scott, I think I've encountered that issue. Let me get with you after the stand-up and we can discuss it, or I can help you with it, or whatever it might be, right? That's really the true purpose of the stand-up, is it's an alignment session. It's for the team to align to the vision, to the goal. You know, in the case of a sprint, and whatever the goal of the sprint is, and being able to help one another. Any thoughts here?
Does that team also drive not only coordinating what the work is among the team, but also the growth within that team to be more efficient, the processes that they have within the team to process the work? Or does that usually
absolutely
come from the leadership?
I think it's, you know, as the team evolves to be more self-directed or self-managing, that those types of behaviors start to emerge. If you're talking, this evolution is like going from a group to a team. What's the characteristic when they make that jump, that leap, if you will? They cross the chasm to, okay, yeah, we're part of this team. And what are the characteristics of when they start becoming actually a real team? And that's what this is talking about. And what you're describing is more when they become self-managing, where they start to take more initiative and more take more control over the work that they're doing. And we're going to get to that in a minute.
Okay.
And so here it's more the team is being empowered to, and the environment is being created to allow them to, you know, have a healthier conflict and collaborate with one another, things like that. Any other thoughts here, questions? All right, so now we get into sort of like the higher levels of teaminess, right? The self-organizing team, a team empowered to assign their own work. This is kind of what you were alluding to, Beth, with support from management. So it's, you know, at the sprint, just an example from Agile, at the sprint planning session, people are raising their hands saying, yeah, I'll take that one. I'll take that story. I'll take that epic. Or it might be, hey, I can work with Scott on that, or I can work with Tana on that, or I can work with Beth on that. You know, it's like opportunities where they see that they can pair with someone, or come up with a small little sub team on a big complicated piece of work and figure it out together. Right? They're assigning their own work. They're figuring out how to align on the work and do things on their own. And you know, a big part of this is when teams become or feel empowered. And so it's important to talk about what that means, right? It requires intention to empower people to do their own work. And this is one part of it, providing team members opportunities to make their own decisions with regards to their work. And there's another key element that's super critical that's not stated here. What do you suppose that is? Anyone?
I don't know.
It may come up on a slide, but I'm just gonna give the answer. It's the safety to make mistakes, right? Because empowerment goes out the window if, say, a team member, an employee makes a decision and it turns out to be a bad decision and they are reprimanded for it. Or that decision-making power, authority is questioned or taken away or ridiculed or whatever it might be, right? So then the safety goes down, and that person is not going to make a decision again. They're going to defer to someone else to make the decision because of a bad experience. And so this is very important, providing team members opportunities to make their own decisions with regards to their work, and the opportunity to fail and learn from their mistakes and apply those lessons to future decisions that they make. So those things to go hand in hand. Thoughts on that?
I think you hit it spot on. I have a team reporting to me right now who I think was more managed militarily than anything. And they look up to me to say, well, what's the decision? What do we need? What do you want us to do now? And we're really of a mindset in our organization right now where we're trying to allow the teams to make our individuals to make their own decisions. And if something goes awry, discuss what the risks were. What did they take into account? If it's successful, they own it either way. So,
Yeah.
But I love the growth opportunities that come with failing.
Yeah.
Or that come with just a lesson learned,
Yeah. This is probably the toughest thing for organizations, companies to transition to this idea that in order to support self-organizing teams is for managers, for leaders to give up decision-making authority. I think, Catherine, you brought this up early in this conversation, how decisions are made. What are the decision-making protocols for the team? Who makes a decision? What kinds of decisions do people make? Have authority to make? And in what cases do they need to go up the chain, if you will? And so I don't know if any of you are. I don't think you are in the Leadership Accelerator program, but we have a series of sessions from Management 3.0 where they talk about this. One of the techniques they talk about that Chris Daly is actually leading is this pattern or game called delegation poker. And what that does is it's sort of like a fancy RACI chart, if you will. But what it does is it helps a team decide what decisions they should be empowered with. And it's a whole team, including their manager, their scrum master, if it's an agile team, their coach perhaps. And it gives people an opportunity to talk about the trade-offs. So as a manager, I can voice my opinion, my reluctance, if you will, to give up some certain types of decision-making power. And that's totally okay. We're talking about it. And people achieve a balance as to what types of decisions they have the full authority to make and what types of decisions they need to consult with a manager, and the levels, if you will, of empowerment based on the decision that gets made. And so I can certainly share with this group in the open part of this community, that method, right? The delegation poker method. And there are other techniques that can be used here. Thoughts on that? All right, I'm going to move on. Take a few minutes, think about it. You know, like after this conversation we've had, what do you think are some characteristics of self-organizing teams? And put that in the Mentimeter. If you're using a browser-based thing, just have to refresh it. It'll refresh with this page on your browser or phone. And you may have already answered some of these, you know, at the beginning questions. So just anything new that comes up for you in terms of what a self-organizing team looks like. Definitely trust. Yeah. And as you're thinking about this and typing this, you know, Google did a study on teams, all of their teams across the world, 4,000 some teams. And the one factor that they found was universal trait that was exhibited by high-performing teams was that they all had high levels of psychological safety. It didn't matter their skills or their experience, or that mattered less. Not that it didn't matter. It mattered much less than if they did or didn't have psychological safety. So, you know, trust is a big part of that. And I don't know who wrote this one, right? Trust, safety, which leads to more empowerment. Proactive, great at prioritizing, great at communicating vertically and horizontally. I really like that. Can you elaborate on that, whoever put that in?
Yes, I did. So great at communicating to the management as well as to team members, especially when collaborating in larger teams and having chats on, let's say, Slack or Teams, and then coming back to the group and making sure everyone is on the same page to prevent any siloed conversations.
Yeah. And that takes skill, you know, it takes skill for people, team members, to get comfortable talking up and talking with their teammates and being able to articulate their thoughts effectively, you know. And so how do you do that? How do you coach your team to get there, to do those types of things?
I guess it goes back to creating a safe environment, trust, just to empower them to speak up and to be proactive and to just like convey that they're heard and their voice matters.
Yes, absolutely. But some people are, you know, they're introverts. They don't want to do that. So how do you help them overcome those personal barriers, if you will?
I try maybe using different formats or modes of communication. So maybe instead of just chiming in kind of like we are all right now in this meeting, giving other options like voting with stickers, you know, all those different tools that we use as facilitators, writing things down on cards anonymously, throwing them in the middle of the pile, and the Scrum Master reads them out. And then having a good facilitator that can, you know, start the team off slow, baby steps, and get them more comfortable, especially those introverted folks, because they have so much valuable, you know, input, and to miss them is a shame. So definitely like activities where it's not all about speaking up in the middle of a meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are great insights and really effective techniques to get the quieter folks in a room speaking. We do a lot of these types of exercises in our facilitation class training, where we train our the participants on these types of techniques. As a leader or a team member, it's just really important to understand not everyone is comfortable, getting in front of people and speaking. And so, in addition to all the things that Tana said, it's also important to give people opportunities, safe opportunities for them to practice, right? So maybe the Scrum Master doesn't facilitate everything all the time, and you rotate that function amongst other team members. Maybe the BA is the Scrum Master for a week, and the next week it's one of the developers, and so on. And so they get practice sort of facilitating and speaking and asking questions and all those things that a good facilitator just takes for granted.
Also, I love that, what you just mentioned, and also maybe having, in our product reviews at the end of our increment, having them speak in front of the company or speak in front of a group of stakeholders, even just a little part, but a part that they know really well, right? Because they just built it. It's kind of fun to watch them kind of flourish, start small, and then move up from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I worked in this company a while back now, where every other Friday was the end of their sprint, and they'd been doing Agile since 2002 or 3. So they were really early adopters and they were actually using XP. And I worked there between, I think, 2009 and 2011. So they've been doing Agile for a long time. It was in their DNA, it was in their blood. And so their sprint ended on a Friday, and mornings was just demos and retros. The afternoons was free for the team to do whatever they wanted, anything. It was their time. The only ask from the company was that once a month, whatever people were working on, if they had something to show, they would show it in a sort of company demo. Ideas that they were building, products they were thinking about, or a latest book that they read, or whatever it might be. And so it gave these people a chance to sort of toot their own horn a little bit and say, hey, here's what I built. And it was beautiful. It was really beautiful, because 90% of the new product ideation ideas came from those 4 hours every sprint.
I believe it. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it was really something to see. All right, some characteristics. A lot of the characteristics of a team are similar: trust, healthy conflict, help others go beyond their limitations, help others sort of overcome their barriers, right? Common goals. It requires leadership and management providing opportunities to build leadership skills. And I really want to stress that from a leadership perspective, leaders live at all levels of an organization. It's about leading your own self, leading your own work, and then having that kind of influence on the people around you. And so self-organizing teams demonstrate that kind of leadership, those kinds of leadership qualities. And a common sort of persona, if you will, in nature is the people starting to question, hey, or at least bring up an idea, hey, should we work on this together? And that's one of the defining characteristics of self-organizing teams, is people looking for opportunities to work on something together with someone on their team. And really, this is where we want to sort of talk about agile teams. We expect that agile teams are self-organizing, right? That should be sort of a given goal for every agile team that we form, that we want to get to self-organizing as quickly as possible. And the premise is based on the people on the team are best equipped to design and deliver solutions. Of course, it needs trust, ownership, and so on and so forth. And managers support this notion. of self-organizing team, right? So they provide support, the servant leadership. We hear so much about in agile circles. It's managers provide that support. And so they are empowering the team to make mistakes, empowering the team to make decisions, learn from them, help them sift through the decisions that they've made and what learning they can get out of it. And from an agile leadership standpoint, you know, I kind of borrowed the values from Scrum and applied it to this management agile manifesto. I didn't do this. Actually, one of our colleagues from a few years ago came up with this. Of course, I can't remember his name. Todd Langford, I think. He wrote a blog post on this, and I really liked it. And I asked him permission if I could use this, and of course, he said, "Sure, use it." So it's from a management standpoint, it's showing courage. And what do you suppose we mean by that? Showing courage. What he meant by that.
Willing to speak up when it's uncomfortable. Willing to take a risk with that group.
Yeah.
Willingness to be vulnerable.
Right. Yeah. So from a leader standpoint, it takes courage to give up too, doesn't it? To give up decision-making authority, control.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I think that's part of it as well. So as a leader, it's like being courageous, saying, I'm going to cede control. I'm going to give this to the team. I'm going to empower you. This is yours. I'm going to delegate this decision-making authority to you because I know you know better than I do because you're the ones doing the work. You're the ones that are coming up with the solutions and trusting the team to make the right decisions and helping them when they don't, right? Supporting them, coaching them. And all the other things are fairly self. Does any of these other words resonate for you? Would you like to share?
I always love to see service in there, right? Leadership through service is important.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, providing a place for growth, continual growth for the team to grow. So if the manager isn't telling the team what to do, and we kind of talked about this, so you can enter it just for posterity. Where should the manager focus? What should the manager be doing besides those things that we talked about? Like tangible things.
Encouragement, knocking out impediments, recognizing. Oh, sorry, we had a Menti on this one or not?
We do, yeah, we do. But you can
I don't see. Okay,
share it on there. Just
Sorry.
refresh your page; it should come up. No problem.
Okay, I just didn't have it in front of me.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I love this. Focus on changing the system. Yeah, absolutely. And focusing on impediments, as Beth, as you mentioned. What else? Yeah, I love that. Recognizing successes, celebrating those successes. Give it another, removing impediments. Yeah. Yes, coaching. Coaching is a super important skill to work on as a manager of a team, as a leader of a team. And I'm going to shamelessly promote our coaching class coming up at the towards the end of March. So just go to our website, check it out if you want to participate, and it gives you lots of tools and to improve your leadership skills through coaching. So leading by coaching. Advertise success of the team and others. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, offer guidance. This is all part of coaching. I want to focus in on the system. What do you mean by that? Whoever put that in?
That was me, Hannah. So instead of trying to, it comes from the management 3.0 and like Jurgen Apello's kind of approach on this stuff, but focus on changing what we can in the system, moving levers where we can in the system rather than trying to change the people within the system.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's sort of this is related to that, right? So most managers are focused on how can I improve the team's output? How can I get them to deliver a little bit more? Increase velocity, deliver some more value. Where what managers really should be focusing on is the system. What's all the other stuff that's going on that maybe is preventing them from being as efficient as they can be, right? All that non-value added stuff, all the bureaucracy that exists in the environment around us, all of the stupid, silly paperwork that we have to do to implement a change request or whatever it might be. That's what managers should be focused on. That's the system around the team. And so if leaders, managers focus on that, that's going to provide a much more headroom for the team to continue to grow and become high performing. All right, we're running out of time, so I'm going to go through these slides here, and these are things that we talk about, and Scott and I think Catherine, you were in the leadership class as well, where managers should focus, right? And we talked about this in the question that was asked, right? Removing dependencies, eliminating bureaucracy, getting the teams more aligned with between themselves, of course, and if there's a separate UX team, if you will, sort of having this double loop, triple loop learning cycle, learning from what you're building by getting feedback from users, UX learning from their research that they do, how it works best for the users, and so on. And then focusing on creating a stable environment for this Scrum team to operate, so they don't have to stop and start and stop and start because the environment doesn't support their work. All right. So I'm going to really quickly go through these last couple of slides. A self-managing team, right? A team empowered to manage their own work within certain boundaries. I'm just going to skip through that question, just go through these slides, and we can have a discussion about it. So lots of the same things in terms of self-organizing. This defining behavior or characteristic is team members asking each other, how should we handle this? So they're now getting involved in managing their own work, where a self-organizing team may be, hey, how can I help you? Or, hey, should we work on this together? They're organizing around the work that's already been defined for them. In a self-managing team, they're actually defining the work by and thinking about how they would what solutions they might come up with to handle it. So a great example is from that experience, 12, 13 years ago at that company I mentioned. Product managers at the beginning of a quarter would come up with their OKRs. They didn't call them OKRs at the time. It was just their goals. It was a web-facing company, and so they had a lot of different web properties and products. And so the goal was to increase customer value, right, by the amount of time that they spent on the website, the retention rate of the customers that they had, or the products that they bought, or whatever the metrics were, right? They said, this is where we want to go this quarter, team. We want to improve in these areas by these percentages. This is where we are at now, and this is what we want to do in the future. There were no stories, there were no epics. There may have been some, but largely the team was left to come up with the strategies that they would use to achieve those goals. It was up to the team. The product management manager, in that case, was just helping guide the team in their thinking, not giving them the epics or stories or whatever that they're going to be working on. Of course, that was very advanced behavior. What do you all think of that?
Could you
Are
maybe
you all still there?
question?
Say it one more time. Oh, can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
So in the example I mentioned, the product managers at the beginning of the quarter would just come up with some OKRs, objectives with key results. We want to improve, you know, our the time people spend on the website by X%. We want to improve the conversion rate by Y%. We want to improve our referral rates by X%, whatever it might be, right? They didn't come up with stories or epics or anything. They just came up with objectives. And they gave those objectives to the team, and the team came up with what they were going to work on. They came up with the epics and stories and things that would help move the needle towards those goals. And I guess my question, I don't remember what my question was. Oh, my question was, what do you think about that? And how would you implement this with your teams?
I like that approach. I think it might take some maybe baby crawl, walk, run steps, you know, to get them flowing and get them used to that idea, right? Because that's like a big change, I think, for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's a
out of it, right? I mean, that's the best things come out of situations like that, where we're pushing that decision making or creativity to the teammates themselves.
yeah. Yeah, it's a huge mindset shift, you know, moving from here's the backlog from a product owner perspective, especially. Here's the backlog. Here's what we're going to work on. This is the Scrum goal. This is this. This is this. Where there's still an opportunity for the team to be self-managing or self-directed to a certain extent. To, hey, here's my goals for the quarter as a product manager. Let's work together to figure out what we're going to do to achieve it. And the team sort of manages that. I'm sorry, Tana, I didn't hear you. I talked over you.
Oh, no, you're fine. I said that would be fun. Like, that would be a fun experiment to try.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're right at the top of the hour. I'm just going to go through the last thing, right? Self-directed, just a subtle difference. This I think is more what I was describing. Common goals is set and managed by the team. Oh, this is where the team comes up with their own goal. Like, picture this, the product manager doesn't give them anything. The team does. The team says, okay, this is where we think we should go as a team. We should improve our retention rates by X% and our sales by Y% and so on and so forth. And the product manager says, that sounds great. Or, you know what, that might be too ambitious. Or, you know what, that might be too pessimistic. Whatever, right? They're providing feedback, but they're not telling the team what to do at all. This is about the team being completely self-directed. They're saying, okay, what should we do next? They're establishing their own strategy, their own vision. So anyhow, yeah, I know. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
That's
We do have, that does, doesn't it? We do have a sort of a Meridian developed assessment, team assessment, that sort of tells you where the team is on that spectrum, from individuals to self-directed. So if you're interested, just DM me and we could sort of administer that and see. From there, of course, you can say, all right, if the team thinks of themselves as a team, first of all, great. Okay, how do we get them to self-organizing, right? And so you would sort of, what are the things you might do as a leader of the team to get them there, and so on. So I'm going to stop there and just see if you have any feedback. Oh, this is actually a mini version of that. You can kind of put in where you think you are. So just refresh your Menti screen and yep. All right, so a couple of you part of a team, one of you more than a couple, three part of a team, one individual contributor. And so, I mean, just think about your teams. I mean, the assessment that we administer at the team level is a little bit more, a few more questions that aim to get at, you know, the level of psychological safety they feel, the level of management support, and so on and so forth. So a bit more comprehensive. But you know, if you can kind of extend where the team is, where they think they are, and then as leaders, how you would help them, that could be super valuable. So. You're welcome, Tana. If you're not already part of the community, I hope you do join. And if you are part of the community, please leave feedback. I'm going to post a recording and this deck in the community. Just leave some feedback, what you thought. And Beth, since you missed the first part, you can always review the recording. So thank you very much for attending. And if you want to leave any feedback now, you certainly can. Just, you know, or opportunities to improve this type of meeting. Always welcomed.
Thanks so much for this time.
Thanks, Kumar.
You're welcome. All right, have a great rest of the day.
You
Take
too.
care. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.